I think we're good to go. With me, I have Jonny, myself, and Pascal. Today, we're going to talk about data products in practice. And Jonny, you have the floor.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me, Pascal. So indeed, you've invited me to talk a bit on data products. I've also seen quite a few clients, and as Dataminded, we took quite some learnings about data products. Today, I won't talk that much about why you would have data products. So we're going to assume that people are already interested, hence they're joining the webinar, I suppose. But we're going to talk about how you can put them in practice effectively. And to me, data products is not an end point, it's not an end goal. It is there to, as the subtitle says, help leaders and engineers work successfully with data. Ultimately, people need data, and we want to help them. And I believe data products is a way to achieve that, because it can connect technical people to business people. And that's what the talk today is about. I've added a mandatory AI sticker on the slide, as all technologies are doing these days, but it's actually a bit deeper. I also believe that in a few years, and we also see that happening now, we are catering not only for humans, but we're catering with data also for agents. We need to prepare the right data, the right metadata, so agents can deal with our data and automate things. All right, but let's dive in. So the first thing I observe is also at organizations, we want to combine a lot of data. We want to create value, and that means breaking boundaries. That means going across your departments, your domains to do things. If you think about customer 360 in marketing, that's something people have been wanting for 20 years or so, I think. But that requires pulling in finance data, sales data, like how do customers respond to sales, how are they using the product, to build good campaigns and to get a good view of your customer. And so organizations want that to happen at scale across these boundaries. And when I look at organizations, and you know me by now, I make a lot of these mental models and drawings, I see many layers. You start with a technology layer, then you have a layer of platform where you combine the technology to work more effectively for your organization. On top of that, you build your data pipelines, your data products, and then the real value is in the domains. And ideally, it's this kind of reverse pyramid where we actually create more value at the top than we invest in the bottom, and that's not always the case. And so the three challenges that we come across are the usual ones. We have speed, quality, and scale. And so I believe that data products can help you bridge that gap between the layers and at the same time increase the three things we'd like to achieve. And that's what we're talking about today. So first, I'm going to give a recap on the anatomy of a data product. What is a data product? How is it in our heads, and how do we depict it? And secondly, let's take two angles. We have the technical angle. How can data products enable the builders? And how can they enable the consumers? And how do we connect those two angles? And then we're going to talk about how we took our Dataminded experience, and you're going to show us how we open source all of that. Okay, well, let's start with the anatomy of a data product. So I always draw the data product as this ball. I think many of our clients have already this slide in their key slide decks on data products. Ultimately, when you look at data product, it combines more than data. Of course, it consumes and produces data, but it's also being operated by people. People build it, people work on it, people own it. And there is a code and the tools that are associated with it. To have it reproducible, to run it daily, you need some automation parts. And combining these three things into one abstract, deployable unit, I think is one of the key things for organizations. It allows you to build a data landscape in an organization, not on tables and rows and people, but on a more abstract level that you can manage. So you will have data products that are source aligned, that take in data to your analytical system. You have data products that are aggregate, that combine these raw data forms into something reusable. And finally, you have consumer data products that make sure you tweak your data just the right way for, as you call it, last mile analytics, and also for AI in that case. All right, so if you look at this, if you own such a data organization, you could view this also as all kinds of factories that consume, produce data, and you need to keep them well oiled. You need to make sure that they operate efficiently. And so let's see first, how do you build such a factory? Who are filling the ball with data, filling the ball with technology, and tools. And that's the data engineer. So that's the first angle. Building some of these data products is quite challenging. When we build, let's say, a report or data for a report, we need to assemble data. So we need to get access, we need to pull in the data, we need to transform the data, preferably using code, so we can do it again later on. We then need to make sure we orchestrate that, we plan it to run daily, we document it, so people can actually use it and know how to use it, so we don't have to explain it all the time. We also supply tests that the data product can test itself in the best way. Like if you run it daily and it checks itself for which columns have the right values, that's really good because you can get a daily check. And then finally, we also these days need to build semantic models. What is the meaning of our data that we can feed to AI agents and chatbots? Because they can actually talk to your data this way, but they need some kind of semantics and a good meaning to give them a bit of guardrails. So all of these things are quite challenging. And that means for every one of these steps, you would need to have technical decisions. And being an engineer, putting on my engineer hat, I also like these technical decisions. It allows us to go deep into things, but it also distracts us sometimes from creating value. If for every data product, we need to decide, where do I store my data? What do I call it? How do I do ingestion? It takes a lot of time away from the value. So how can we actually make that better? As we do, we standardize. So we take that concept of a data product and we don't leave it completely open. We say when you build a data product, it means to us, for example, if you run on Snowflake, Databricks would be similar. A data product will give you two schemas, for example, collections of tables. One schema for things you keep in your data product, internal stuff, and one schema that is shareable with other people. And you give it a naming convention, and then people don't have to decide on all of these first steps. And so you standardize the technological mapping. Because you standardize, you can automate. And that's exactly what we did in one of our clients. Together, we had the system where we made a form. People can very simply say, I want to build a new data product. It's for an HR chatbot. You give a description, why you need it, and I'm the owner of it. I have a few data engineers collaborating with me. I press go, and automatically I get a space on our data system, for example, on Databricks. And I also get code in a repository already. I get a small space where I can start building. So I get the shell of my data product. And you can give people templates, you can accelerate them even further, but the ultimate idea here is self-service. You make it self-service. They don't have to come and ask to the platform team, I want to do this. They don't have to make decisions. You make it easy. And so this shifts the whole focus to value. You reduce the technical decisions, and then we can create more value. And that's actually the first layer that we covered now. We build a platform that speeds people up by standardization, by self-service. So now I'm actually curious. We have a first question, I think, for our audience. Depending on your organization, it depends on how it's built up, how you organize. I would like to learn how decentral are the companies that our audience is working for.
Okay. So I opened another interaction, and indeed the question is, as Jonny stated, how would you describe the current state of your data platform? Is it fully centralized, meaning all the data and the platform is centralized? It's kind of a hybrid, meaning like the domains owns the data, but the platform is managed centrally. Fully decentralized, meaning everybody does their own thing within their domains, or I don't know, or ad hoc, there simply isn't anything. These are the options, and we see actually a lot of results coming in. I'm actually happy to see that there's a lot of hybrid.
Yeah, indeed.
A lot of hybrid going on. There's a few who do fully decentralized. I can see that working as well, but I often see that's a challenge. There's one person who says we don't really have anything formal. There can be various reasons for that. I'm happy to see actually there is this hybrid thing, because I do think that's, especially for larger organizations, that's a very common approach we see, and a very good approach.
Exactly. You keep that bottom layer more central and also part of the governance, and then you decentralize the data activities themselves.
We do see still quite a lot of companies also still being fully centralized.
Yeah. I think that's what we see in many companies, where you have data factories that do all the things from data ingestion, technology, and dashboarding. the risk that you then often see is that it becomes a bottleneck. As you want to grow, that factory cannot hold it anymore, or you start seeing delays or quality issues. For decentralization, that's also a challenge, because then you need to still get like an interface between the domains, even if you decentralize. All right, that gives us a good view on how people are dealing with their data and their platforms. I have another example for you, Pascal. So again, on this platform side, we just discussed like who is actually building the data, who is actually filling that data product. But there's also a special role, which is the data product owner, who also needs to make decisions. What data do I need, and who do I give access to the data that we're producing? So this owner profile, and there's many other questions, they actually need to make sure like how is data access being regulated? Historically, we do data access on data objects like tables that you give people access to. And with data products, I think this fundamentally shifts towards a different level. We are now actually connecting data products to give access. So there's no technical people that need to be involved anymore. How does that work? Well, if you need access, because we standardized data products, we can automatically extract metadata and push it to the discovery catalog, such as Data Hub. People can look it up, find out which data product it belongs to. So for example, I'm trying to build my HR chatbot, as everybody wants these days. I have Slack messages, I have Teams messages in a data product, and that's in the employee data product. And so what we need to achieve is that there's an agreement between the two owners that the data can be used for this purpose. Again, we can make it self-service instead of ping-ponging for a few days. How does that work typically in organizations, Pascal?
Do you really want to know? I have various experiences with that, Jonny, but if I look at most organizations where I have worked in, I typically start by looking on Confluence, right? So many organizations are still using Confluence. I try looking for what's there. Sometimes there's documentation and there's a link to like who maintains or owns it. And then you figure out that person left the organization a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
So that data is often not up to date. And then you start probably like going on Teams and asking people. And in the end, I typically end up with a technical person who can create me an account. And depending how convincing I am to why I need that access, I might or might not get credentials for life, probably. To that system.
Exactly, and that's a good point for life, because afterwards nobody will remember why, Pascal, you got access to that data. And so we shift away from that because we try to do it on a data product level. Process you just described, it can take weeks sometimes. And so we accelerated that by also making it self-service. People can now say, for my data product, which I own, the HR bot, I need Slack messages. So I check the box for Slack messages, I send request. At the other side, at the producer, a Teams message pops up. There is a new request. They press it, fully integrated in Teams. They get an approval. They said, I approve or I decline because of these reasons. They also see the request. Or they can even delegate it to other people. The big advantage is it's integrated into their system that they already are familiar with. And it has full lineage offered by the approval system that's baked into Teams. But the ultimate advantage is also it's less than 1 hour. Ideally, you can just request and it gets approved. In real cases, somebody will still need to check, like, is this according to our compliance rules and things like that? But you have the ability to do it really fast. So again, this is an example of how a platform that operates on the level of data and products can accelerate you if you use it in the right way. Good, but then we are building data products. There are also expectations with data products. So one of them is we want to build good data products or healthy data products. And we have this Daft Universe checklist that we borrowed. But essentially, Pascal, if I would ask you, would you like all of your data products to be discoverable? Would you say yes or no?
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Do you want them to be understandable?
Preferably, yes, because otherwise it will be very hard to use them.
Exactly. So if I go through this whole list, I am guessing you will say yes to all of them. And I also think many people in the audience will say yes to many of them. But that is the easy part. Everybody wants this list. And then you give it to your engineers and say, yes, make all my data products interoperable, discoverable. And again, they need to make technical decisions out of them. So what we do here is we try to make it, well, easier for them, for everybody to understand what does it mean, discoverable. So if I would ask you, Pascal, for you, what is discoverable?
Well, it means that I publish it somewhere and other people can find it and evaluate if it's valuable to them.
Indeed. And depending on the organization, that's somewhere we need to decide.
Yes, indeed.
Data Hub? Is it open metadata? Is it something else? What does discoverable mean? So we make this really measurable as well. I will focus on the discoverability part here. So discoverability could mean in an organization, every data product is registered in the catalog, every table has a description that is pushed to the catalog, and every column has a description that is pushed to the catalog. So you make things very specific and also measurable. And I think that's a big advantage because then again, you standardize and you can automate. So that's exactly what we did. We made this checkup scorecard at one of the organizations we're working for. And basically, we're saying we have this list of compliance rules and we can automatically check them. And so engineers themselves, they see their score and also the mitigations they can take. And we also give them mitigation. So you can imagine there is a fix with AI button in the future that creates a pull request, you can review, and you have a higher compliance score. So here, the point I'm trying to make is because we work again with data products, this is one unit, you can have very clear and measurable, smart quality rules that are computational. You can look at the code because we standardize that. You can look at the data, Snowflake and Databricks, and come up with this evaluation system. And so here, I think we also have a nice follow-up question for the audience.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll start another interaction. And the question is like, we talked about these 10, or it's 10 that universe. It's 10 characteristics of a good data product. Like, what's probably the most difficult for your organization to maintain?
I'm very curious about this one.
Let's give the audience a little bit of time. It's a long list. We added some hints to what it actually means, and so we're asking for your top 3.
I see. Currently, trustworthy is coming in as the highest one at this point. Reusability also scoring high. But trustworthy, yeah, it's a good one. Can we guarantee quality? And I think quality is on 2 levels. You have the data quality. There's many things to say about that. Does my column contain these values? And data tests on logic. But there's also the data product quality on a technical level. Are we compliant? Are we following the naming standards? Things like that. And I think combining those can make your landscape a bit more trustworthy.
No, and it's actually a quite similar result. Like last year, we also did like this big survey where we asked like what are the biggest challenges organizations are struggling with, and then also data quality was often a point that was actually coming forward as the biggest challenge within organizations. And for me, that trustworthiness is still a big issue. But I also see finding the data, just the discovery of it is still a real problem, as well as understandability. So results are still coming in. Jonny, for the sake of time, I think I'll leave it open a little while longer so people can still add their own vote to it. But in the meantime, let's continue.
All right. So we talked about these 2 levels, and there's plenty of other things to enable the builders. We won't go into detail of that now. But let's have a look into the next level and the next angle, which is the consumer end. If we look at the business side, the domain owners, for example, they also have a job to do. They need to make decisions. But if you would put your data products inside the domains and give them domain ownership, essentially they also need to ask new questions. How are we doing with our data? Are we compliant? Where is our money going? Where is our investment going? Who is using our data? Are we compliant? All these kind of questions, they need to be able to answer. And because we laid the right foundations on the platform and the data product level, we now have data to answer these. So we actually transform all of this into, I made a bit of a mashup of different dashboards that we built, but essentially you can give insights to run your business in your domain. So you can say the usage of your data, who is using my specific tables? What is the value we're getting out of that? Expressed in monetary value. How much does it cost? Where are my factories positioned? Who's using them? where are we getting data from? Where is my PII data traveling to? And you can get a view in which are the best and the worst data products that I am owning, with a compliance list. Who is making the most compliance violations, and what is the thing that is violated most? So you can tackle that. They can even open up the factory and peek inside and see, like, okay, why is this costing so much money? Is it because the people cost is too high or the infrastructure cost? And have a look at this checklist. Like, why is the score 87%? What are they actually not doing? So here, I think this shows how you can scale. What typically goes wrong in organizations in terms of governance is that it's governance on paper, in my opinion. It's never integrated. What data products gives you as an opportunity is you integrate it fully in your data landscape. So it allows the decision makers on a domain level to peek in what's going on. And I think data products are a common language you can use across all of these layers. So on a domain level, we get scale by making governance insightful. And so those were actually my three angles that I had. Let me give a brief takeaway. So I think data products, if you're already convinced how to do it effectively, well, the first thing is make sure that the concept accelerates and enables your full builders by using standards and making it self-service. That's the job of the platform engineer. The second thing is make sure they're healthy and use measurable quality guidelines that are integrated in the platform, that are computed. Then the third thing is governance at scale. Make sure you give the domain owners fit-for-purpose insights, again, on that same data product level. And to me, the solution is a data platform that can then integrate data products as first-class citizens. All right. Do we have another poll for?
Yes, we had one other poll because you showed all these cool dashboards that we built at different customers. The next interaction is actually like as a data product or domain owner, which governance insights would make your job easiest? Like what are actually from a data product or a domain owner? What's the information you're interested in?
Yeah, so it's basically asking which components of such a dashboard or information would help you do your job. Also very curious about that one. Value. This is a difficult one.
Yes, it's well, quantifiable ROI or impact. I think impact, you can look at is kind of a little bit easier because if you have a kind of lineage and you can see how your data product is being used, you can at least see who else you're impacting, what other domains am I impacting, how is my data being used. I do think that's a good one. I think if we really talk about ROI, I think cost can still be measured. But then the value, that's always
that's the tricky part.
That's the tricky part. I think there you're always looking a little bit at proxy measures that you then try to translate into like euro dollar value and to kind of compare it to the cost. But it remains a hard topic.
But you can ask people to do a ballpark estimate of like what is the value of this. But the more deep you go, like to source line data products, the more difficult it will be.
And it's definitely also more difficult to actually measure. In an automated way. A lot of the other things are way easier to automate.
Indeed. All right. I think so. That was the part I would like to share with you, Pascal. And so basically, with all the experience that we have built, we are now open sourcing some of that experience.
Oh, absolutely. And Jonny, I first want to definitely thank you for sharing. You mentioned already we have done this at a customer together. You're doing it now at more customers. And so because we were seeing these repeated patterns, we decided to, hey, perhaps we should bring all these learnings to open source, and hence we created a data product portal, right? And I'll give a demo of data product portal in just 1 minute. If I look at why we built data product portal, or for who did we build data product portal, well, I think there are 3 key players. You already mentioned it. On one side, you have the data engineer or the analytics engineer. On the other side, I do think you mentioned as well, there's this data product owner or domain owner, and there's this third group, and you hinted towards that group. already, I typically call it like the enablement team. I didn't want more than 3 personas, but actually that enablement team is typically multiple persona. Is typically what you already mentioned, the integration with the platform. So that's the platform team, but also the governance team that actually has to set the rules. And so personally, I like the abstraction of data products a lot, because if you bring it to all these different personas, you have a common concept to actually talk about. And instead of like data engineers talking about DBT and pipelines and all these things, and like we just saw, domain owners talking about ROI and value and these kind of things, and platform team talking about like the what's under the engine, we get to a common concept where we're all agreeing on. And that's for me that's what I really like about data products.
I agree, sort of a universal language. The same way apps are doing that for software, I think data products are doing that for data.
You made that analogy in the past as well. I like it. So I think we can go ahead and see where we are with Portal today. So let me share my screen. So as you can see, this is running on my local machine. I have integrated it with some components that I'm running locally, and I have already done like a small pre-setup. I have created some domains, the marketing domain, the logistic domain, sales domain that I have defined, and I have already created a couple of data products. So in this case, I have shipments, I have customers, and I have orders. These are all source-aligned data products that I created. And this is what we see in Data Product Portal, but they also exist on a technical level. And during this demo, I'll switch between the UI, and then I'll switch back to here that they also exist on a technical level and see what happens there. In this case, I've actually set them up as 3 different DBT projects for these source-aligned data products. Let's get back to the UI. Right. So what are we going to do? Let's create a new data product. And Jonny, I think somewhere you already mentioned a marketing customer 360, the default data product to actually showcase. I think it's definitely, as it is for marketing, clearly stated, it's a consumer-line data product. It starts, of course, in the draft state. It's for the marketing domain. I don't have any tags at the moment. I give it a short description. And when I hit this create button, a number of things will actually happen behind the scenes. So the moment I hit that button, an event is actually sent out, and that is captured by a component we call the provisioner, that behind the scenes is managed by typically that enablement team, that platform team, to automatically scaffold a number of things, do that technical mapping automatically so things are set up behind the scenes. I'll come back to that in just 1 minute. As a data owner, I definitely want to add some more information here, like a value proposition, like how people should use it, recommended use cases, some terms of use, some information that's useful to anybody who wants to actually later on use this data product. Right. We can see now it's in the ready state, and I just want to show like that technical mapping that I was talking about. If I switch back to the more technical view, I'll see that automatically a DBT project has been scaffolded behind the scenes. If this were a production environment, right, we would not just create a folder, right, and scaffold this project. We would create a new Git repository, create new credentials, create, as you mentioned, create multiple schema. This is running on a Postgres database, create service accounts, assign roles, do a whole bunch of things that data platform teams usually do. But then this is more integrated, more in a self-service way, and this is happening all behind the scenes.
Yeah. You're even giving a template already so that people are accelerated when they start.
Yes, absolutely, because you talked a lot about the standardization and consistency, and I'm a sucker for consistency and standardization, because it really helps you as an organization to keep speed. If you then need to change something, it's way easier to change something for all of them if you're consistent than if everybody just do their own thing. So let's get back here. And Jonny, you mentioned, right, that ball, right?
Yeah.
I'm always making a little bit internal jokes about that ball, right? But so what we saw there was what you mentioned as well. It's these data is coming in. That's what we call an input port. Data is going out. That's what we call output ports, right? We have an owner. You can assign team members to it, and it's actually linked to various tools. So all these concepts you talk about, they come here together in a data product. Now, I just created this data product. Yes, I scaffolded some code, but of course, like if I don't have any data coming in, there's not a lot really I can do. So what should I do? Well, I need input data. So I'm actually going to search for data. And in this case, we automatically shift to the marketplace the moment I ask this. And here I can actually search for data. Now I don't need to search because I only in this demo have 3 output ports of the other data product published here. And I need actually all 3 of them to build this 360. Lucky me that they are already there. So I see them here, I can add them to my cart and say like, hey, I want to use them later on, but I can also zoom in and look a little bit like, okay, what kind of information is available there? So what's the freshness, what's the version, what's the table schema, but also how other people are using it. And this is something we built together with another customer who really wanted to show insights in what are other consumers who are actually using this data. And this is now dummy data. But it will show, are there similar customers like me who are using it to reach similar goals? Or you can also see like, is this something that was created once and never used, or is this heavily used? Because, we were talking about trust. If I see, hey, a lot of people outside are using this, right? This will give me way more trust in this data product than if I see like, it's used once a year by a single domain. That would not give me a lot of trust.
And this is also useful for the producer side, right? To see whether people are actually using it.
Yes, because that's part also of your job as a data product owner to actually drive that adoption, right? For the sake of this demo, let's continue. So I basically shopped for the 3 data products, and now of course I have to request access to it. I'm going to provide like, why am I actually needing this data? And when I hit submit access request, I'm actually sending an access request to all the owners of these other output ports or the other data products. Let me switch temporarily, give myself admin privileges so I can actually approve all these access requests as well. You can do this through emails. You also get notifications in this app. And for this case, I'll just accept for these product owners that I actually have access. And if I go look there, now I actually have access to these 3 data products. Again, the moment these 3 data products, were approved to be used, events are being sent out. Again, that provisioner is actually taking these events and actually granting the service accounts running behind the scenes to actually use that data.
Yeah.
So now as a data engineer, I can actually switch back to my technical view and say like, hey, I'm gonna implement this. And we can do some cool stuff because like the moment I approve this, I cannot just set up the service account, making sure I have access in the context of this project to these data sources. But I can also send pull requests to, for example, update my source information, right? Making it easier again for engineers to implement this very transparently. Now, I'm not gonna use AI or anything to actually write the simple marketing 360. I'm just gonna be lazy and copy paste this. I define the query that defines this, and I can just run this. What would be? It's probably this one, right? And now I can run this locally. We make it as easy as possible to actually for engineers to, like you mentioned, focus on the value you are delivering. Now let's switch briefly back here. So now I might be ready to say like, hey, internally this works for me, but of course you want to publish it back also to the marketplace. And so in order to do so, I have to say like, okay, I want to make this available. I want to create an output port, right? And let's create one. So this is how we expose these things. That's not the correct shortcut. So we're going to expose this as the customer 360. I think it's ready, right? Yeah. We did all our things. We can set the access type. It can be either public, meaning anybody can request access to it, and it's automatically approved as an owner and just getting a notification. It's restricted. I need to approve any access to this, or it's private, meaning it will not show up in the marketplace, but I can still assign other data products to actually being able to use my output port. I'll give it a description, And then now I basically can create this. What I now have to do, the only thing I have to do is make sure that whatever lives behind the scenes, you talked about the schema, is actually linked to this output port. So when people ask access to this, they actually underlying get access to this technical mapping.
But you decouple the technical implementation from the access management, which can then happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing to, what we can see here is a little bit how the lineage looks like. So in this data product, we're getting this data in, we're writing in this technical component in this Postgres database, but we're actually exposing this to the outside world. And so if we go now to the marketplace, we can actually see that our customer 360 is now available and other people can actually request access to this data. And this is where I'll stop the demo. You mentioned a whole lot more, right? There's still a lot of work in progress, like what you mentioned, like the scorecards or the governance, tracking, the ROI, right? There's a lot of things we're building up right now. Thank you all so much for joining this webinar. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to actually reach out.
Yeah, we have a few links. If you're interested also in Portal, you can visit our website and also the GitHub repository because it's open source. And as Pascal said, if you have questions on any of these matters, whether it's more on the business side or the technical side, just reach out to us.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.